I'm Samantha, 29F, and I've been married to Clyde, 31M, for 3 years now. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue 6 years ago, and it was like something out of a rom-com. He spilled his drink on me, I laughed it off, and we ended up talking for hours. We dated for 3 years before getting married, and those years were some of the happiest of my life. Clyde is everything I could have hoped for in a partner, kind, supportive, and we share a deep understanding that I've never experienced with anyone else. We both work full-time jobs. I'm a graphic designer at a local advertising agency, and Clyde is a high school history teacher. Our evenings together are precious to us. We usually cook dinner together, experimenting with new recipes we find online, and then settle in to watch our favorite shows. It's a simple routine, but it's ours, and I love it. When we first got married, we faced a dilemma about where to live. We had been renting a small apartment, but we wanted something more permanent. That's when Clyde suggested we move into his childhood home. His father, Robert, had passed away from cancer 5 years ago, and his mother, Eileen, 58F, was living alone in the large, 2-story house. At first, I was hesitant. Moving in with in-laws can be tricky, and I worried about privacy and boundaries. But when Clyde explained the situation, it started to make sense. The house was big enough that we could have the entire upstairs to ourselves, while Eileen would live downstairs. It seemed like a win-win situation. We'd have our own space, Eileen would have company, and we'd be able to save money for our future. Eileen is a sweet woman who mostly keeps to herself. She's a retired librarian who spends most of her time reading or tending to her garden. When we first moved in, she made it clear that she respected our privacy and wouldn't interfere in our lives. She even joked about installing a bell at the bottom of the stairs so we'd know if she was coming up, though we assured her that wasn't necessary. For the first few months, everything was perfect. We settled into a comfortable routine. Clyde and I would leave for work early in the morning, often bumping into Eileen in the kitchen as she made her morning tea. We'd chat briefly before heading out. In the evenings, we'd sometimes all eat dinner together, sharing stories about our day. It felt like we were building a real family dynamic. But then Clyde's sister, Rachel, 33F, started causing problems. Rachel and Clyde had always been close growing up, despite their 2-year age gap. Clyde often told me stories about their childhood adventures and how Rachel had always been protective of him. I was looking forward to building a relationship with her when Clyde first introduced us, hoping for a sister I never had. However, from day one, Rachel was cold and dismissive towards me. At first, I thought maybe she was just shy or needed time to warm up to me. But as time went on, it became clear that Rachel simply didn't like me. She would make snide comments about my clothes or my job, always with a sweet smile that made it hard to call her out without seeming oversensitive. Rachel is married to Tom, 35M, and has 2 kids, a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. They live about 20 minutes away, in a nice suburban neighborhood. Despite having her own family, Rachel visits her mother almost daily. At first, I thought it was sweet how close she was to Eileen. But I soon realized that Rachel's visits were more about keeping tabs on us and trying to control what happens in the house. One day, about 6 months after we moved in, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I was surprised to find Rachel in our part of the house, going through our things. When I asked what she was doing, she claimed she was looking for an old family photo album. I knew this wasn't true because Clyde and I had already gone through all the old photos when we moved in, organizing them neatly in the living room bookshelf downstairs. This incident led to our first big confrontation. Rachel started criticizing how we kept our space, saying it was messy and that I clearly didn't know how to maintain a home. I was hurt and angry, but I tried to keep my cool. I simply told her that we both work full-time jobs and do our best to keep things tidy when we can. This seemed to set Rachel off. She started yelling about how I was lazy and didn't deserve to live in her family home. She even went as far as to say that Clyde would eventually see how worthless I was and kick me out. I was shocked and hurt by her words. I had always tried to be kind and respectful to Rachel, even when she was cold to me. To hear her say these things felt like a slap in the face. When I told Clyde about the incident that evening, he was furious. He couldn't believe his sister would behave that way. The next day, he confronted Rachel when she came to visit Eileen. Rachel tried to deny it, claiming I was exaggerating, but Clyde didn't believe her. He made it clear that if she couldn't respect me, she wasn't welcome in our part of the house. This only seemed to make Rachel more determined to cause problems. She started spreading rumors about me to other family members. She told their aunts and uncles that I was trying to drive a wedge between Clyde and his family, that I was changing him and turning him against them. It was frustrating and hurtful, especially because I had always tried to be respectful and kind to everyone in Clyde's family. Things came to a head during Thanksgiving last year. We were hosting dinner for both our families, and I had spent days preparing. I wanted everything to be perfect, hoping that a nice family gathering might help smooth things over with Rachel. I had even asked Eileen for some of their family recipes to include in the meal. On Thanksgiving Day, everything was going well until Rachel showed up with 3 of her friends in tow. We hadn't invited them, and there wasn't enough food for extra guests. When I politely explained this to Rachel, she exploded, accusing me of being selfish and unwelcoming. The argument that followed was intense. Rachel screamed that I was trying to take over the family and push her out. She even accused me of manipulating Eileen to turn against her. I was in tears, and Clyde was livid. He ended up asking Rachel and her friends to leave, which only made her more furious. After that incident, Rachel started demanding that we sell the house and split the proceeds. She claimed it was unfair that we got to live there rent-free while she had to pay for her own home. We explained that we contributed to household expenses and helped take care of Eileen, but Rachel wouldn't listen. She seemed convinced that I was somehow taking advantage of the situation. The situation has become unbearable. Rachel continues to spread lies about me, and she's trying to turn Eileen against us. She's even started showing up at my workplace, causing scenes that have embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. Last week, my boss pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay at home, which was mortifying. Clyde and I have discussed moving out, but we don't want to leave Eileen alone, and we love this house. It's not just a house to us, it's filled with memories of Clyde's dad, and we've made our own memories here over the past few years. The thought of leaving because of Rachel's behavior feels like letting her win. I'm at a loss for what to do. I've tried everything to make peace with Rachel. I've invited her for coffee to try and talk things out, sent her thoughtful birthday and Christmas gifts, and even offered to babysit her kids to try and build a relationship. But nothing seems to work. She seems determined to hate me, no matter what I do. Clyde is incredibly supportive, but I can see how much this family conflict is wearing on him. He's torn between his love for me and his bond with his sister. I don't want to be the cause of a rift between them, but I also can't continue to live under this constant attack. Eileen has tried to stay neutral in all of this, which in some ways makes it worse. I understand she doesn't want to choose sides between her children, but her silence sometimes feels like tacit approval of Rachel's behavior. Clyde has suggested family therapy, but Rachel refuses to participate, claiming that I'm the one who needs help, not her. I love Clyde more than anything, and I want to make this work. But I'm starting to wonder if that's even possible with Rachel in the picture. Has anyone dealt with a similar situation with in-laws? How did you handle it? I'm looking for any advice on how to improve this situation without completely destroying my relationship with Clyde's family. I'm afraid that if something doesn't change soon, it's going to irreparably damage my marriage, and that's the last thing I want. Update 1: It's been about 2 months since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. It really helped me gain perspective on the situation and gave me the courage to take action. After much discussion, Clyde and I decided to take a more proactive approach to dealing with Rachel. We realized that trying to appease her or ignore the problem wasn't working, and it was time to address the issues head-on. We started by sitting down with Eileen and having an honest conversation about everything that had been going on. To our surprise, Eileen was more aware of the situation than we thought. She admitted that Rachel had been complaining about me to her for months, but she didn't believe most of what Rachel said. Eileen confessed that she felt caught in the middle and didn't know how to handle the situation without upsetting either of her children. She also revealed something that shed new light on Rachel's behavior. Apparently, Rachel had always struggled with change and had a hard time when Clyde first left for college. Eileen suspected that Rachel's issues with me stemmed from a fear of losing her place in the family. This conversation with Eileen was a turning point. She suggested that we have a family meeting to clear the air. We were hesitant at first, worried that it might devolve into another shouting match, but we agreed it might be the best way to address everything openly. So, last weekend, we invited Rachel and Tom over for dinner and a talk. The days leading up to the meeting were tense. I spent hours cleaning the house, wanting everything to be perfect so Rachel wouldn't have anything to criticize. Clyde was on edge, alternating between hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. Eileen busied herself making Rachel's favorite dessert, hoping it might help smooth things over. When Rachel and Tom arrived, the atmosphere was thick with tension. We made awkward small talk over dinner, everyone avoiding the elephant in the room. Finally, after we'd finished eating, Clyde cleared his throat and suggested we move to the living room to talk. The conversation started tensely. Rachel immediately went on the defensive, accusing me of trying to steal her family. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of all the advice I'd received, and calmly explained how her behavior had been hurtful and unwarranted. I shared specific instances of her actions and how they made me feel, trying to keep my tone neutral and non-accusatory. Clyde backed me up, telling Rachel that her treatment of me was unacceptable. He reminded her of all the times I had tried to build a relationship with her, only to be rebuffed or insulted. It was hard for him, I could tell, but he stood firm in his support of me. To our surprise, Tom spoke up. He had always been quiet during family gatherings, and I realized I barely knew him despite being in-laws for 3 years. He admitted that Rachel's obsession with her childhood home and her animosity towards me had been causing problems in their own marriage. He revealed that Rachel had been spending more time at Eileen's house than at their own home, neglecting their children in the process. Tom looked exhausted as he spoke, and I felt a pang of sympathy for him. This revelation seemed to shock Rachel. She broke down in tears, confessing that she felt like she was losing her place in the family. She admitted to feeling jealous of my relationship with Clyde and threatened by my presence in her childhood home. Through her tears, she talked about how hard it had been to see changes in the house, the new paint colors we'd chosen, the rearranged furniture, the photos of Clyde and me on the walls. Each change felt like an erasure of her childhood memories. While I sympathized with her feelings, I made it clear that her behavior was not okay. We had a long, emotional discussion about boundaries, respect, and family dynamics. Rachel opened up about feeling left behind when Clyde went to college and how she had always imagined raising her kids in their childhood home. I shared my own fears of never being accepted by her and how her actions had made me feel unwelcome in what was supposed to be my home too. By the end of the night, Rachel had apologized for her actions, and we had agreed to try and start fresh. It wasn't a magical fix, years of resentment don't disappear overnight, but it felt like a step in the right direction. We set some ground rules. Rachel would call before visiting and respect our privacy in our part of the house. We would have regular family dinners to stay connected in a positive way. Rachel would stop spreading rumors and negative comments about me to other family members. We would all make an effort to communicate openly and honestly about our feelings and concerns. Rachel agreed to consider seeing a therapist to work through her feelings about change and family dynamics. It's only been a week since this meeting, but I've already noticed a change. Rachel has been more respectful when she visits, calling ahead as agreed. She even invited Clyde and me over for dinner at her place, which is a first. The dinner was a bit awkward, but it was nice to see Rachel making an effort. Eileen seems relieved that we're all trying to get along. She's been more relaxed and has even started talking about taking a vacation, something she hasn't done since Robert passed away. I think she feels less pressure to be the peacekeeper now that we're all communicating better. Clyde and I have had several long talks since the family meeting. He's expressed guilt over not realizing how deep Rachel's issues ran and for not standing up for me sooner. We're working through it together, and if anything, this whole ordeal has brought us closer. I'm cautiously optimistic about this new development. I know it will take time to rebuild trust and create a truly positive relationship with Rachel. There are moments when I still feel guarded around her, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I'm trying to approach our interactions with an open mind and heart. We're planning a family outing next weekend, a picnic in the park where Clyde and Rachel used to play as kids. It was Rachel's idea, and I'm choosing to see it as a positive sign. I'm nervous but hopeful. I'll keep you all updated on how things progress. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It's been a challenging journey, but I'm hopeful that we're on the path to becoming a real family. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. Initially, things seemed to be improving with Rachel. She was respecting our boundaries, and we even had a few pleasant family dinners together. The picnic I mentioned in my last update went surprisingly well. Rachel shared some funny stories about her and Clyde's childhood antics, and for the first time, I felt like I was getting a glimpse of the sister Clyde had always told me about. However, about a month ago, everything took a turn for the worse. It started when Clyde and I announced that we were expecting our first child. We had been trying for a baby for a while, and we were overjoyed when we finally got the positive test result. We decided to share the news at a family dinner, thinking everyone would be happy for us. Eileen was thrilled, immediately talking about knitting booties and planning a nursery in the spare room downstairs. But Rachel's reaction was unexpected. At first, she congratulated us with a tight smile. But as the days went by, her behavior became increasingly erratic. She started showing up at the house unannounced again, often at odd hours. One night, she rang the doorbell at 11 p.m., claiming she had a bad dream and needed to check on Eileen. Another time, she showed up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, saying she was in the neighborhood and thought she'd stop by for breakfast. When confronted, she claimed she was just checking on Mom, even though Eileen was perfectly fine. Things escalated when Rachel started rearranging things in our part of the house. She claimed she was baby-proofing, but it felt more like she was trying to assert control over our space. She moved our furniture around, saying certain arrangements were safer for a baby. She even went through our kitchen cabinets, lecturing us about the dangers of certain cleaning products. When I asked her to stop, she accused me of being ungrateful and hormonal. She said she was just trying to help and that I clearly didn't know anything about raising children. It was like all the progress we had made over the past few months had vanished overnight. The final straw came last week. I came home from work early due to morning sickness and found Rachel in our bedroom, going through our closet. She claimed she was looking for some old baby clothes she thought Eileen had stored there, but I knew that wasn't true. We had already gone through everything when we moved in. I asked Rachel to leave, trying to stay calm despite my growing frustration. But instead of leaving, she became hysterical. She started yelling about how this was her family's house and that I had no right to kick her out. She even went as far as to say that she should be the one having a baby in this house, not me. She ranted about how she had grown up here, how she had always imagined raising her children in this house, and how unfair it was that I was taking over her family home. Clyde came home in the middle of this confrontation and was furious. He firmly told Rachel to leave and not come back until she could respect our privacy and boundaries. Rachel left in tears, but not before warning that we'd regret this. Since then, Rachel has been calling Eileen constantly, trying to turn her against us. She's been telling Eileen that we're pushing her out of the family, that we don't want her to be involved in the baby's life. She's also been posting vague, passive-aggressive comments on social media about fake family and home wreckers. Eileen is caught in the middle again, torn between her love for all her children, including the one on the way. She's been trying to mediate, but it's clear that the stress is taking a toll on her. Clyde and I are worried about the effect all this drama is having on her health. Clyde and I are at a loss. We love this house and don't want to leave Eileen, but we're seriously considering moving out for the sake of our mental health and our unborn child. We're worried about the stress this is causing to the baby, and we don't want our child growing up in such a toxic environment. We're planning to have another conversation with Eileen about the situation. We're hoping she'll understand and perhaps consider asking Rachel to seek professional help. Rachel's behavior seems to have escalated beyond simple sibling rivalry or fear of change. We're concerned that there might be deeper issues at play. If things don't improve, we might have to make the difficult decision to move out. The thought breaks our hearts. We love this house and the life we've built here. But our baby has to be our priority now. I'll update again when we have more news. Thank you all for your continued support during this challenging time. Update 3. It's been 6 weeks since my last update, and a lot has changed. I'm now 20 weeks pregnant, and we recently found out we're having a little girl. Despite the joy of this news, the situation with Rachel has continued to deteriorate. After our last confrontation, Rachel's behavior became even more erratic. She started sending us long, rambling emails in the middle of the night, alternating between apologies and accusations. One moment she'd be begging for forgiveness, the next she'd be blaming me for ruining her family. She would show up at our workplaces, causing scenes and embarrassing us in front of our colleagues. My boss had to ask her to leave twice, and I was mortified. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Clyde and I came home from a doctor's appointment where we had our 20-week scan. We were excited to share the ultrasound pictures with Eileen. But when we walked in, we found Rachel in our kitchen, cooking dinner as if nothing was wrong. Eileen was sitting at the table, looking uncomfortable. When we asked what was going on, Rachel announced that she had decided to move back in to help take care of Mom and the baby. We were shocked. Clyde immediately told Rachel that this was not happening, but she refused to listen. She started ranting about how this was her family home and she had more right to be there than I did. In the heat of the moment, she let slip that she had been planning to move in for weeks and had already started moving some of her things into the basement. That's when Eileen finally spoke up. She admitted that Rachel had been pressuring her to agree to this arrangement, even going as far as to threaten to cut off contact if Eileen didn't comply. Eileen had been too afraid of losing her daughter to say no, but she was clearly distressed by the whole situation. Seeing how upset his mother was seemed to snap Clyde into action. He calmly but firmly told Rachel that she needed to leave immediately, or he would call the police. Rachel exploded, screaming and throwing things. In her rage, she accidentally knocked over Eileen, who fell and hit her head on the kitchen counter. The next few hours were a blur of ambulances, police, and hospital waiting rooms. Thankfully, Eileen was okay, just a mild concussion, but the incident was a wake-up call for everyone. While at the hospital, we learned that Rachel had been struggling with some mental health issues and had recently stopped taking her medication without consulting her doctor. This explained some of her erratic behavior, but it didn't excuse it. In the aftermath of this incident, we've made some big decisions. We've taken out a restraining order against Rachel. It breaks our hearts to do this, but we need to prioritize our safety and the safety of our unborn child. Eileen has agreed to seek therapy to help her deal with the situation and set healthier boundaries with Rachel. We're working with Rachel's husband, Tom, to ensure she gets the help she needs. He's been incredibly supportive and apologetic about the whole situation. We've decided to stay in the house for now. Eileen needs our support, and we don't want to uproot our lives because of Rachel's actions. We're converting the basement into a small apartment for Eileen, giving her more independence while still keeping her close. It's been a challenging few months, but we're hopeful that these changes will lead to a more peaceful future. We're focusing on preparing for our daughter's arrival and creating a loving, stable home for her. Thank you all for your support throughout this difficult journey. Your advice and kind words have been a source of strength for us. We're looking forward to the next chapter of our lives, hopefully with less drama and more joy.